All right, we can begin. Very good evening to all the participants and our lovely audience. This time, SpectraTech brings to you something different. We have had debates over the last few weeks where we witnessed some great teamwork and some solid arguments put forward by both the teams. However, this time, we have kept the floor open for all the speakers to come and individually put forth their views without following any restrictions. So we really look forward to not only an informative but also an entertaining session. And I can rest assure you that your next 30 minutes will be well spent. So on that note, I shall like to hand over the proceedings to Shivam, who shall be introducing today's motion along with the rest of the speakers. So Shivam, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dhruv. I myself am looking forward to this discussion very much because this is a topic that I also like very much. Our topic today is that the House believes that attempts to colonize Mars is a waste of time and money. A truly polarizing topic, if you ask me. Let's see what the speakers have for us today. Our first speaker today will be Rishi Banerjee Ghosh. And Rishi, please note that your stipulated time would be 3 minutes plus 30 seconds. Rishi, you have the floor.
A very good afternoon to one all present here. Today we discuss the motion attempts to colonize Mars is a waste of time and money, and I thoroughly support it. Over the next few minutes, I will explain to you why that is so. Today, my argument is divided into three main portions. Firstly, I will speak on the various issues associated with colonizing Mars. Secondly, I will refute the common justification made for colonizing Mars. And thirdly, I will speak on how the money, time, and resources spent will have better use elsewhere. With that, let me explain my first point. Observe that today's motion clearly states attempts. That itself demonstrates that what we are doing to colonize Mars is merely us trying to do so. We have no guarantee whatsoever that it will be successful. Now, in order to colonize Mars, it's obvious that we have to make the planet habitable for humans. And there are various aspects to Mars environment and terrain that make it very problematic. For instance, Elon Musk is a notable personality who is involved in the concept of colonizing Mars. His plan was to terraform the planet and make it more like Earth so that humans could live there naturally without requiring any other aid. And his idea was to drop thermonuclear bombs on the ice at the poles in order to heat and release carbon dioxide in order to produce an atmosphere made of heat-trapping greenhouse gases to raise the planet's temperature and pressure. However, 20 years of NASA and ESA satellite data show that even if we mine Mars's entire surface for carbon dioxide, Mars is far from reality, and efforts to do it will be a complete waste of time and money. Now, along with this, we have the problem like oxygen level, that of course lack of magnetic field. I'm sure other speakers will delve into that more. But the point here is that there is no lack of problems we face in order to make Mars habitable. Huge efforts we need to go to in order to fix each and every one of them will take up a large amount of time and money. And even if we completely remove the possibility of failure, the question that remains is that will all that be worth it? And to answer that, I look to my second point. Now, a very common point made to justify the colonization of Mars is that it will serve as a backup planet in case Earth faces some kind of apocalypse, like the final devastating effects of climate change. However, understand that space travel is a huge luxury. It isn't available to every single person on Earth. Thereby, if and when the time comes to pack up our luggage and move to Mars, who is it who actually moves to Mars? The obvious and the correct answer is those who can afford it. It's the wealthy. It's the people who have money for it. It's those who can afford the travel while leaving behind those who do not have the money to avoid an apocalypse. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, all the money and time spent to rectify what I talked about earlier is to fund a getaway for the elite. And I'm sure I need not say any more on the matter, and you can figure out the rest for yourself. Now, the last point I wish to speak about today is why this is all a waste. If this was mankind's last and only option left to avoid the coming future, then I can entirely understand it wouldn't be a waste if there isn't anything better to spend it on. But that's not the case. NASA's entire Apollo project cost more than $280 billion. And what we're talking about today isn't just making a path to Mars and setting up an entire home planet there. At the same time, if we look at renewable energy, for instance, investments there don't go above 80 billion. And therefore, the immense amount of money that we're spending to create a second home for a few can go towards fixing the home that we already have for everybody. And I don't think it's a dilemma as to what is we really want. Here, I rest my case without my stance. I give my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rishi. Points well taken. Now I would like to open the house for questions. If anyone wants to ask any questions, they may raise their hands. First question recognized will be from Ved Bajoria. Ved, you may go ahead.
Yeah. Rishi, you said that traveling to Mars is a very costly affair and only the elite can do it. So when flights were started, they were also very costly and only the elite could do it. But the prices were significantly dropped because it was a mass product. Now it's a mass product and everybody can travel through flights. So why can't the same thing happen to space travel?
Thank you for this question. Understand that the flights that we have going from one part of the earth to another and interplanetary flights is on a whole new level, and therefore the cost, it won't be cost effective basically. If we have the amount of money taken to produce flights to transport people from one planet to another and having and actually transporting that will not be cost effective, and hence that won't really transport.
Thank you very much for the question. Our next speaker today will be from none other than Ved Bajoria. Ved, your time limit will be 3 minutes and 30 seconds. You may proceed.
Good evening, members of the House. I'm Ved Bajoria. I will be debating against the motion which states that attempts to colonize Mars is a waste of time and money. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be providing two main points to counter this motion and prove that it is baseless. First point being waste of time. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to understand that from a planetary standpoint, Mars is the closest we've got. Mars is the closest we have got to humans being habitable on another planet except Earth. There are other planets like Kepler 422b or Alpha Centauri, but it would take us approximately 4 years to get to those planets, while it would take us 4 to 6 months to get to Mars. The second point being, I would like to state an analogy here. Okay, so let's go back a few thousand years. I live in the Indian subcontinent. So people at that time did not know that other cultures, other people existed and other land masses existed. So what if no one ever traveled, no one ever explored the Earth as a planet and did not find other people? I would not be speaking a language today I'm speaking in if people do not explore. The same goes towards space. Let's say space is like Earth and the planets are like the countries. So we have to explore and innovate and broaden our horizon so that we can achieve this goal to colonize Mars, and Mars is a key step of this. Let's come to the second point, waste of money. So the motion says that it is a waste of money to attempt to colonize Mars. So let's take an example here. The US spent around $22 billion this year towards space exploration, while it spent around $38 billion towards climate change. But so it spent around 2 times on climate change on what it spent on space exploration. So this brings us down to a very basic thing we learned in earlier classes. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to understand that we cannot place all our eggs in the same basket. So what if we are moving towards a better climate, a better environment, but what if it does not work out? What if an asteroid strikes Earth in a few years? We have to have a backup plan, and Mars is that backup plan. Okay, I would like to end my speech here by providing another simple example. So Mars is like a life insurance to Earth. So let's understand this. Suppose I'm a 20-year-old man and I'm the breadwinner of my family. So I hope to live for another 40 to 60 years. But what if something happens to me in 4 to 5 years? So the same thing can be applied to Earth. We hope that Earth will get better, the conditions will get better. But what if it doesn't? We being possibly the smartest species to ever exist on Earth, can we just perish? No. So Mars is the key towards this. Here I would like to end my speech, but not my stance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ved. Now we will be accepting questions on that speech, if any. Please raise your hands on Zoom. Seeing none, we move forward to the next speaker,
I think
who
Soham
is
raised his hand.
all right. Soham, if you wish to ask a question, please
Yes, I
proceed.
wanted to ask a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear
Yes,
me?
sir. Yes,
I
sir.
wanted
Please
to
proceed.
ask, what I wanted to ask Ved was that he said that in 4 to 5 years, we might be in a situation where we might need Mars as a home or as a planet to survive in, as us being a very smart species, would we perish or not? So what I wanted to ask is, in 4 to 5 years, we could create a wind energy harvester, we could create a hydroelectric power plant in every country practically in 4 to 5 years with proper amount of investment. So you would rather spend on something which does not have guaranteed success than spend on something which you can literally build something with a guaranteed success.
So thank you for your question. So first of all, this is not a guaranteed success that this will work, because we are trying to right now move towards a green environment or make earth better, plant more trees, etc. But is it working? It's not working completely right now. If you look at the news, Antarctica has melted more than it ever has. So we are moving towards this, but there is no guarantee that this will work. So it can never cost us to have a backup plan.
Thank you, Ved, for the answer. Our next speaker would be Soham Misra. Your time is 3 minutes plus 30 seconds. Soham, you may take the floor.
Good afternoon, all present here. The early humans expanded their land because they needed it for farming, raising livestock, etc. The British initially colonized land because they needed a cheap source of resources and a market for goods. The modern generation of humans wants to spend billions on colonizing another planet because they're curious to learn and explore and to have a backup plan. Investment is a very important factor of financial growth. However, all investments have a risk factor, a chance to cause loss. And I feel that I would feel safer investing on something which shows less risk than something which might literally crash and burn. See, our own planet has what I would call a base, something to build on, and something we've been building on. And this is something that investment is worth it. Would you pool in your resources over something unknown or keep building on what you have? This right here is what I would call a gamble. Are you willing to gamble what you have for what does not have a guaranteed success? This whole concept, this whole idea of colonizing Mars brings me to one question. Why? I mean, like, backup plan is understandable, but if it's for habitable land, do you know how much land we have just lying around? 47% of the USA is empty land. Our own country would have enough land for everyone if proper architectural planning was initiated and applied. Our own resources today should be focused on our race's development and growth. And right now, solving the crisis of world hunger and poverty is the only path we should be looking at. We're barely surviving. We barely survived this pandemic. This itself proves how unprepared we are. What is the point of taking over another planet where we can't even live there? I mean, even if somehow we were able to procure oxygen in another planet, are we planning? Are we seriously thinking of an interplanetary migration? People will pay billions to move on to another planet when they can live just as comfortably in their own. I mean, this is not even solving our problem. We're trying to cover it up, move to another place, and just leave our problems there. And this is what we're gonna research and build on. There's war-stricken countries, men and women starving. There's gender, race, and caste discrimination. Civil wars, minimum wage issues, terrorists, drug dealers, rapists, suicide, homicide, genocide, assassinations, military coups, and we're spending billions on something which might even lead to more problems and issues.
Thank you very much, Soham. Now we would like to open the house for questions. If anyone wishes to ask, please raise their hands. Question recognized from Ved Bajoria. Ved, you may proceed.
Soham, you said that it is better to build on Earth instead of going to another planet. Okay, Soham, how many things can we build for? My question is, there are so many things, so many natural calamities Earth can suffer. Okay, let's say you can build for sustainable energy, windmills, or anything. Can okay, let's say if an asteroid is hitting Earth, how do you plan to survive that?
My plan certainly wouldn't be rocketing off to another planet, but what I would say, this is really literally a 1 in a billion problem you're suggesting. An asteroid hitting Earth is also a problem with the risk. There's a factor of percentage, whether it hits, whether it does not hit, whether it goes by. And what I'm trying to say here is we have something we've started, and we have something which has a chance of growth. We have a chance. Are we willing to leave this chance and move to another place? Are we willing to move somewhere where it might just end up being worse, where we might actually perish? I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much, Soham. Our next speaker would be Ishmit Singhania. Ishmit, you have the floor. Please note your time to be 3 minutes plus 30 seconds.
A very good evening to one and all present here. I am Ishmit Singhania and I stand strong and firm for the motion which states that attempts to colonize Mars is a waste of money and time, and I would perform everything in my power to prove how valid the topic really is. So we all know what Mars is. Mars is the fourth planet from the sun and is often referred to as the red planet. So in the past couple of decades, people have started to regard Mars as an alternative for Earth. However, in this speech, I'm about to prove to you how unfavorable it is to make attempts to colonize Mars. Speaking of it, I would like to move on to my first constructive, which covers the reasons why Mars can't be a location where humanity can be shifted to. Mars' atmosphere is dominated by carbon dioxide at a concentration of 96%, and the amount of oxygen is only 0.13% compared to 21% in the Earth's atmosphere. Such a colossal amount of carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, results in the increase of Mars's temperature to a vast extent, and the most indispensable gas, which is oxygen, is present only in traces. Now, the opposition might say that NASA's Mars rover, named Perseverance, deliberates fresh air. But let me mention that the rover is an experimental device which splits carbon dioxide, providing only 10 minutes of breathable oxygen. And to create a rover like Perseverance, it took NASA 8 years. The major reason why Mars is reckoned as a substitute of Earth or a place worth being a colony is because it is believed that Mars contains a limited amount of water. But what if I tell you that the amount of water on Mars is almost negligible? Almost all water on Mars today exists as ice, though it also exists in small quantities as vapor in the atmosphere. What was to be thought to be a low volume liquid brines in shallow Martian soil, maybe grains of flowing sand and dust slipping downhill to make dark streaks. Now, the opposition might say that that water can be derived from Mars's soil, but pure liquid water cannot exist in a stable form on the surface of Mars, owing to Mars's low atmospheric pressure and low temperature. And speaking of atmospheric pressure, the low atmospheric pressure of Mars is one of the most prominent environmental stresses that life on Mars would have to cope with. The atmospheric pressure is so low that blood would burst from one's veins, he would get paralyzed, and in a matter of seconds, he would die. The opposition might also say that to tackle the atmospheric pressure, spacesuits are a solution. But to mention creating spacesuits for the entire population is much onerous and strenuous. And also, the price of only one spacesuit equates to $25 million. Not only water, but the other metals which are of daily use, for example, magnesium, aluminium, copper, zinc, etc., are also present only in traces, thus making it even more difficult for mankind to sustain on Mars. The biggest reason why people emphasize on establishing a colony on Mars is that Earth is getting contaminated and full of pollution. But what if I told that Mars is already contaminated, since the soil on Mars is composed of relatively high concentrations of perchlorate compounds, which are toxic in nature? This was found out by NASA's orbiters named Odyssey, which detected the presence of perchlorates in the soil. This is also the reason why water cannot be extracted from the soil and also why plants can't be grown. Apart from this, life on Mars is also influenced by the effects of low gravity. Thus, I would like to conclude that it is not a very useful idea to attempt for establishing colonies on Mars, since it would result in a waste of money and time. Here, I rest my case, but not my stance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ishmit. Now we open the house for questions. Anyone wishing to ask, please raise their hands.
Anyone can go ahead, ask question. I think his speech was without an right. Ved, you can go ahead.
Ishmit, you said throughout your speech that there are many faults on Mars, like whatever faults there are on Mars. So why do you think big space exploration companies like Blue Origin, SpaceX, NASA, ISRO, why are they still working on trying to make Mars habitable?
Thank you for your question, sir. Sir, big agencies like SpaceX, NASA, ISRO, so they are not planning to establish a colony on Mars. They are looking and they are trying to gain and extract information from Mars, whether there are any chances of life, there are chances of water, and the information which I presented in my speech are the results of these information which are extracted from these agencies. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ishmit. Now we move on to the last speaker for today, Nikhilesh Mukherjee. Nikhilesh, you have 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The floor is all yours.
Good evening. Today, I will be using 2 points to prove to you that attempts to colonize Mars are absolutely justified and they are certainly not a waste of time and money. My first approach will be proving to you the importance of these attempts to establish settlements on Mars in terms of scientific advancement and practical utility, which you will soon realize are not two entirely distinguishable entities. Now, one of the main reasons for establishing settlements on Mars, for going to Mars, is scientific curiosity. For example, one of the main things that we want to attain from going to Mars is getting a better understanding of the position Earth has in the world, of getting a better understanding of space science, which can be used for purposes on Earth. But what really is the relation of scientific curiosity? What is the importance of scientific curiosity in the human world? We have to understand that the desire to explore the unknown, desire to find out what is unknown, and the desire to explain what is unknown, along with the desire to invent new things to solve our problems and to perform our activities better and more efficiently, is one of the main driving forces that has led to a lot of progress humanity has achieved in the course of its existence. So the scientific spirit and science and the desire for invention is one of the defining characteristics of humanity that sets it apart from all the other species that inhabit this planet. So scientific curiosity is something that is inseparably linked to human culture, and going to Mars and attempting to colonize Mars would lead to a great would be an unprecedented opportunity and a great step in the right direction to develop the scientific curiosity. But the precise practical application of the scientific curiosity may not be clear. So to explain how it's applicable in things like attempting to go to Mars, I would like to draw a parallel to other theoretical fields of study that are simply born out of curiosity, which have had extreme practical implications. Consider fields like particle physics and nuclear physics. They originally started out as equations on a piece of paper trying to understand how particles work, how particles interact, and what types of particles there are. But right today, after their cultivation, after their evolution, they form the basis for all the modern technology that surrounds us, from phones and to GPS. All of these require understanding of how particles work. We have to also understand that there was all the experiments done into bacteria and fungi simply to understand how they work, how they react in different conditions, done in biological laboratories out of pure curiosity. These are now the basis for a lot of therapies and medicines that are improving the human condition every single day. So overall, what actually starts out as theoretical and which may not have any foreseeable practical implication, which may not have any foreseeable effect on the quality of humanity, that is going to end up having a lot of practical utility to humanity. And I believe this applies in all its severity and all sincerity to the case of attempts to colonize Mars. Now, when we colonize Mars, there are two possible outcomes, one of which is failure, like the first speaker who was speaking for the motion stated. But understand that when it comes to science, a failure in a scientific experiment is almost as important as a success in a scientific experiment, because ultimately the point of a scientific experiment is to find out truth and to find out fact. And knowing what is wrong, knowing what is not fact, can help us get a lot closer to what is actually true and what is actually fact. So taking into account all of these factors, attempting to colonize Mars, apart from all the various reasons that the previous speakers on side opposition mentioned, is a great step forward in the right direction for scientific curiosity, which can have a lot of practical applications in our world. Now, I would like to tackle the misconception that has been brought up by a lot of speakers of the proposition that the moment we spend money on things like space exploration and Mars colonization, we are automatically depriving the government of opportunity to use those funds to tackle pressing problems at home, like the 20 problems one of the speakers of side proposition mentioned. But understand that simply if you take the money that is being spent on Mars, that is being spent on space mission, and shifted it to alleviate poverty, that was not good. That is not going to do anything significant in that respect, because understand problems like poverty have multiple aspects. They simply cannot be solved by a panacea like transferring a certain amount of cash to everyone's account. They have to be done by informed policy making, by creating job opportunities, by giving incentive, and by improving the overall quality of life. And it simply cannot be done by transferring a certain amount of money X from the space funding account to the poverty account. Another thing that was brought up in today's debate was global warming. Now, understand that the amount of research that is going to be done in Mars is going to be tied to other scientific research, and therefore there is very little doubt that all of the scientific research is also going to help in finding out new solutions to global warming. Consider understanding the nuclear particles. 70 years back, we did not know at all how much it was going to be a solution to the energy problem we are facing today. But currently, the application of a purely theoretical and a purely curiosity driven aspect of scientific research has now found immense practical implication. So overall, what I want to appeal to the House today is that we must let fact and logic prevail, and we must let the search for scientific fact and logic also prevail. Thank you.
Right, great, Nikhilesh. That brings us to the end for today's debate. Big thank you to all the participants for coming today and sharing your views on a highly debatable topic, not only presently, but something that is going to sustain in the future as well. But what was more impressive was that each one of you came here, put forth your views, and it was quite nice to see everyone having different viewpoints. Few of the points were so impressive that I can guarantee that even the professors at MIT shall be interested to know about. So no matter whether Mars will be colonized or not in the future, what was more important today was the confidence that each one of you displayed. And being a member of the 21st century, I'm pretty sure that our generation is in the correct hands. So, and on the topic being mentioned, whether Mars should be colonized or not, see, me myself, I'm a supporter of colonizing Mars, just like a very important fact that Nikhilesh pointed out, scientific curiosity is something that should never stop. Knowledge is endless. However, one thing, while colonizing Mars, we need to take care of is the environmental issues. As long as those are taken care, there's no harm in colonizing Mars. Now, what do you mean actually by colonizing Mars? You mean that people are coming in and humans are trying to settle on the planet. So there's no harm. Even one of the speakers mentioned that you can have it as a backup. See, backup is there, but along with that, you are exploring the resources there, and exploration is something that all our researchers are continuously working upon, and various kinds of endowments are being given to these research. So we should rather support these research, no matter what our viewpoints were today. We all know that this was something that all of us shared our viewpoints upon. However, I believe that that you all continue to engage in such topics along with great discoveries, and follow these magazines articles where you get to know about such things. So those watching this video, I would definitely recommend you all to share your comments on the YouTube channel as well as on our official site. So that being said, Shivam, any thoughts that you would like to share?
Well, I think you've pretty much covered everything, but I would like to point out one thing that I really liked about today, which was that none of the speeches were like a Wikipedia page. They weren't just endless facts and statistics. That did not happen, and I enjoyed it. You all presented logic and common sense, something that would make sense to a person if he or she heard it, not just 20% of this, 40% of that, which was very enjoyable, and it engaged each and every one of us. So that is something I really liked, which also shows that you've done a very in-depth research into the topic, and it's not done in a hurry. You've dedicated your time and energy into it. And of course, the confidence part was very admirable. Not a single fumble, I think. Very commendable. And that's pretty much it. Just keep up the good work. Impressed.